Now we will discuss Bohr model of the hydrogen atom. Bohr proposed a model. It does not mean what some of you may be thinking. Bohr proposed a model of the hydrogen atom based on a clever combination of classical and early quantum concepts. The basic assumption he made that electrons cannot move in any orbit they like. Electrons can move in only certain specified orbits called stationary orbits. So, this is the nucleus. Electron can move here, electron can move here, electron cannot move here. So, since it cannot move here, it cannot continuously emit radiation and hence lose energy. Bohr found that the angular momentum of the electron is quantized. It can be only integral multiples of h by 2 pi. So, mvr, mv is momentum, mvr is angular momentum, is equal to nh by 2 pi, where n is principal quantum number. N has got values of 1, 2, 3, dot, dot, dot. Dot, dot, dot means up to infinity, all integers. So, this was the first equation, mvr equal to nh by 2 pi. Bohr agreed with Rutherford that the electrostatic force of attraction between the electron and the nucleus provides the necessary centripetal force. You know the formula for centripetal force? What is that? mv square by r. Right? You have learned this in circular motion. And this is equal to electrostatic force of attraction between the electron and the nucleus. Right now we are talking only about hydrogen. Hydrogen has got one proton in the nucleus, one electron going around that nucleus. So, charges are E and E. One is plus, other is minus. So, we can write this equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught E square by R square, Coulomb's law. So, mv square by R equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught E square by R square. This is equation number 2, right. Now, using these two equations, we can get equations for radius, velocity, energy and so on. So, let us do that. Very easy derivation. From this equation, you can write the equation for V. So, V becomes nh by 2 pi mr. Why have used this equation, not this one? Because here square is there. We get square root. We don't like square root. Square is better, but without square also very nice. So, V is nh by 2 pi mr. Now, I will put this in this equation. So, what will you get? M by r, square this, n square h square by 4 pi square m square r square. This now becomes equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught E square by R square. Now, what happens here? We can cancel out many things. This R square will get cancelled. This 1m will go. Then, what else? 4 pi. 4 pi. So, now we can get the equation for R. R we can take it that side. So, R becomes epsilon naught n square h square by pi me square. This is the equation that you need to memorize. Right? Very easy. You can derive also very easily if you know MVR is NH by 2 pi and mv square by r is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught E square by r square. Just get V from here, put it here, you get R. Important thing to remember, radius is proportional to n square. In J advanced, sometimes instead of the electron, they give you some imaginary particle having some other mass. So remember this also, R is proportional to 1 by m. So this is the radius of the nth allowed orbit in Bohr model. Now I want to get velocity. Velocity is here, but we have got r here, so we don't want to get rid of r. So we'll take it here. V becomes nh by 2 pi m r. R is here. Epsilon naught n square h square by pi m e square. Now see what will cancel out. NH cancel out. Pi goes. M gets killed. So what is left? V equal to E square by 2 epsilon naught NH. This is the formula for velocity. And see, velocity is proportional to 1 by n. Velocity is not a function of mass of the particle. Since somebody changes the mass of the particle, the velocity is not going to change. So r is proportional to n square. V is proportional to 1 by n. Remember, right now we are talking only about hydrogen atom. Once you have got velocity, you can get kinetic energy. Right? All of us know that kinetic energy is half mv square. So square this and multiply by half m. What do you get? me to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught square n square h square. Check that. So now you got the formula for kinetic energy. Right? Now suppose you want to find potential energy. Potential energy is given by 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught E square by R. Put that R here and realize that U is nothing but minus 2k. This in fact will be negative because potential energy is negative here. What about total energy? Total energy will be sum of k plus U. This is minus 2k, this is k. So total energy is minus k. So we learned something very, very important, that the potential energy is minus 2k and the total energy is minus k. Have you seen these kind of equations elsewhere? If you learn gravitation, you know these equations. Exactly same equations. Whenever a particle moves in a circular orbit, under the action of a force that obeys inverse square law, like F is proportional to 1 by r square, gravitational force, electrostatic force. Whenever a particle moves in a circular orbit, under the action of a force that obeys inverse square law, F proportional to 1 by r square, like gravitational force, electrostatic force. This is true for electron moving around nucleus, satellites moving around Earth. In this situation, U will be equal to minus 2k. U is potential energy, k is kinetic energy, and total energy E will be equal to minus k. Remember that, very, very important. So therefore, energy of electron in the nth orbit is given by minus me to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught square n square h square. Try to memorize this one equation. This is minus of kinetic energy. Once you know kinetic energy, you can find velocity. Right? Once you know velocity, you can find radius. So just see how you can memorize these equations. So energy is proportional to 1 by n squared, and energy is also proportional to mass. Like in J advance, they will give mass, an imaginary particle is having mass 4 times an electron. Then you need to know this. If mass becomes n times, energy will be n times. So electron jumps, the frequency also will be n times. The wavelength will be 1 by n times. Remember that. We will solve some problems on that in the lecture. So energy is proportional to 1 by n square. Some values also you must memorize. Radius of the first orbit is written as A0. This is 0.529 angstrom. Angstrom is 10 to the power minus 10 meters. The velocity of electron in the first orbit of hydrogen is 2.19 into 10 to the power 6 meter per second. Very high, right? This is also equal to C by 137. Okay, this is called fine structure constant. So velocity of electron in the first orbit is C by 137. That is 2.19 into 10 to the power 6 meter per second. Energy of electron in the first orbit of hydrogen is minus 13.6 electron volt. Right? Radius we have seen is proportional to n square. Velocity is proportional to 1 by n. Energy is proportional to 1 by n square. So you can find these values for any orbit. For example, energy in the second orbit will be equal to minus 13.6 by 2 square, that is minus 3.4 eV. Energy of electron in the third orbit will be minus 13.6 by 3 square, that is minus 1.51 eV. Energy of electron in the fourth orbit will be minus 13.6 by 4 square, that is minus 0.85 eV. Try to memorize these values, useful in solving some questions. Energy in the last infinite orbit is 0. So try to memorize these values, they are useful. This is the nucleus. This is first orbit. This is second orbit, and so on. As we go from inside to outside, it is very obvious that radius increases, the radius of the orbits. The velocity of electron decreases because V is proportional to 1 by n. As you go more outside, the force will decrease, okay, centripetal force. Therefore, V decreases. After this, let us look at energy. What happens to energy? Energy does not decrease. You may think it is decreasing because you see these numbers. But this is all minus. Therefore, energy increases. Remember, 0 is more than minus 13.6. The potential energy, which is just double of this, will also increase. The kinetic energy will decrease. Mode of total energy will decrease. Mode of potential energy will decrease. Remember this, they keep asking these kind of questions in exams. So remember that as you go from inside to outside, radius increases, velocity decreases, total energy increases, potential energy increases, kinetic energy decreases, mode of total energy increases. No, mode of total energy decreases. Total energy is increasing, so mode of total energy will decrease. Potential energy will decrease. No, mode of potential energy will decrease. So this is the Bohr model of hydrogen atom. What happens when you go from hydrogen to hydrogen-like? Hydrogen-like means ions which have got only one electron. Bohr model is for single electron atoms or ions. Helium plus, it has got only one electron. Lithium plus, this has got also one electron. So when you move from hydrogen to hydrogen-like, then in every formula replace E square by ZE square. That's all you remember. Every formula replace E square by ZE square. Right? We had 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught E square by R square. So now that force formula will become 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught ZE square by R square. We had for energy, kinetic energy ME to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught square N square S square. So that E to the power 4 will be replaced by ZE square whole squared. So Z square E to the power 4. In every formula, replace E square by ZE square. The radius now becomes proportional to N square by Z. The velocity becomes proportional to Z by N. And the energy is proportional to Z square by N square. How will you remember this? First thing you remember is that N and Z come on opposite sides of the numerator denominator. See, N is upstairs, Z is downstairs. Z is upstairs, N is downstairs. Z is upstairs, N is downstairs. So they are on opposite sides. For energy, everything is squared. Z is also squared, N is also squared. For radius, only N is squared. So N squared by Z. For velocity, nothing is squared. So this way, you can trick your brain to remember things for a long time. Otherwise, you memorize today, after a few weeks, you'll ask your neighbor or look back at your notes. R is proportional to N square by what? This is N square by Z. V is proportional to Z by N. E is proportional to Z square by N square. Just remember this. Right? Very easy. Both are squared for E. Only N is squared for R. And for V, nothing is squared. So R is proportional to N square by Z. V is proportional to Z by N. And E is proportional to Z square by N square. So in this lesson, we have learnt about Bohr model. And in the next lesson, we will learn some more things about Bohr model. Bohr model, the basic equation is mvr equal to nh by 2 pi. And the second equation is mv square by r, the centripetal force, equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught E square by R square. Using these two equations, you can find formula for radius, you can find formula for velocity, you can find formula for energy. Radius of the first orbit is 0.529 angstrom. Velocity of electron in the first orbit is 2.19 into 10 to the power 6 meter per second. And energy of electron in the first orbit is minus 13.6 electron volt. Okay, based on this, you can think of ionization energy. What is ionization energy? Ionization energy is the energy required to remove an electron completely. An electron is having negative energy. Whenever the total energy is negative, the system is bound or closed. That is called binding energy. We will learn that later. If you give an energy so that the total energy becomes 0, then the electron is free to move away, and that is called ionization energy. For the first orbit of hydrogen, the ionization energy will be 13.6 electron volt, because electron is having energy of minus 13.6 electron volt. To make it 0, we need to give it plus 13.6 electron volt of energy. Now in the next lesson, we are going to learn some more things about Bohr model. Now we will discuss Bohr model for hydrogen-like atoms. Bohr model is valid for single electron atoms or ions. Helium plus has got one electron, so it is a hydrogen-like atom. Lithium plus plus has got one electron, so that also becomes hydrogen-like. Now when you apply Bohr model to hydrogen-like atoms, in every equation replace E square by ZE square. That's all. For example, in the equation mv square by r equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught E square by r square, just replace E square by Z square. For the equation for kinetic energy, m e to the power 4 by 8 epsilon naught square n square h square, replace E square by Z square. So now it's E square whole square, so Z square will come. So this is what needs to be done for hydrogen-like atoms. Replace E square by Z square. Radius we saw for hydrogen was proportional to n square. Here radius will become proportional to n square by z. Velocity we know is proportional to 1 by n. So here it becomes z by n. Energy, which was there 1 by n square proportional, now it is proportional to z square by n square. Now you may think, how will you remember all these things? First thing remember, n and z are on opposite sides of the numerator denominator. If n is upstairs, z is downstairs. If z is upstairs, n is downstairs. Here you see n upstairs, z downstairs. Z upstairs, n downstairs. Z upstairs, n downstairs. So now you'll never get confused about which one is up, down. One is up, the other is down. Now for energy, both z and n are squared. Z is squared, n is squared. For radius, only n is squared. Z is not squared. And for velocity, nothing is squared. So if this way you can remember things using some tricks, so that you can remember for a long time. Otherwise, you learn today, 2 days later you'll forget. Then you refer to your notes or ask your friend and then recall these things again. Now, as we go from the nucleus to outside, the radius increases, right? More and more radius. The velocity decreases. More far away, less force, less centripetal force, velocity decreases. The energy, what happens to that? You may think that is going from minus 13.6 to minus 3.4 is decreasing, but actually all those are minus, so therefore it increases. The potential energy also increases. The kinetic energy will decrease as V is decreasing. Mod of E will decrease. Mod of U will decrease. So remember this, these questions keep coming in exams. As we go from inside to outside, radius increases, velocity decreases, total energy increases, potential energy increases, kinetic energy decreases, mod of total energy decreases, mod of potential energy decreases. We can get simple questions on this. Suppose someone tells us, using known values for hydrogen atom, calculate the radius of 4th orbit of helium plus plus. So you want to calculate radius of 4th orbit of He plus, not plus plus, because helium is He plus is single electron. So this will be equal to, R is proportional to n square by z, so n square by z, and radius of the first orbit is A0. N here is 4, so 4 square. Z is 2. A0 is 0.529 angstrom. So this way we can find out. Suppose someone tells us find the velocity of electron in the 4th orbit of lithium plus plus. So what will you get? Velocity of electron in the 4th orbit of lithium plus plus, and velocity is proportional to Z by n. So Z by n, n is 4, Z is in fact 3 into 2.19 into 10 to the power 6 meter per second. So this way we can calculate values for hydrogen-like atoms. Now, sometimes we may need to think about the emission spectrum of the various isotopes of hydrogen. All the isotopes of hydrogen have got the same electron moving in a circular orbit, only the mass of the nucleus is different. In all the formula that we discussed so far, mass of the nucleus does not come into picture. So how to explain this? This is done using the concept of reduced mass. What is reduced mass? This is given like mu. Mu is the symbol for reduced mass. This is mass of electron by 1 plus mass of electron by mass of nucleus. If in every equation we replace mass of electron by its reduced mass, then it takes care of the effect of the mutual attraction between electron and nucleus.